Mr. Gary Underkoffler was born on February 2, 1946 in Likens, Pennsylvania. He was born in a house, not a hospital, and his mother took care of him during his childhood. She was a single mother and worked in the hospital laundry. Mr. Underkoffler also had a clubbed foot, so he was always in and out of the hospital. He would be in the hospital for 6 months at a time, and then he would be out for a couple of months before going back in again. In the hospital, he would watch TV in order to keep himself occupied.
Mr. Underkoffler was the middle child with one older brother and one younger brother. He was also the only one to join the armed forces. His older brother went into the textile industry. His younger brother, who has since passed, went to college at the University of Kentucky to major in chemistry. Within the last 2 semesters of his senior year, he dropped out to work with their father as a border maker. Underkoffler had always thought that his younger brother had made the wrong decision, but he was glad that they all got to enjoy what they did.
Underkoffler enlisted when he was 19. He liked water and he didn't want to be a foot soldier, so he joined the Navy. The day he got on the bus to leave for basic training was very hectic because he had just gotten married to his current wife, Patricia. Even during his service, they made sure to keep in close contact with one another.
Mr. Underkoffler's first days of basic training were hot.
Hot. It was hot. We went to, it was in the July and August that I was doing my boot camp, and it was hot. And they were out in the field marching and running and doing physical stuff. That it was hot.
For basic training, he went to the Philadelphia Navy Station. In high school, he had taken business, shorthand, algebra, and bookkeeping classes, so he was prepared to be a yeoman, a secretary position.
After Underkoffler had finished basic training, he celebrated. He was then transferred to Norfolk and assigned to the USS Grand Canyon. The USS Grand Canyon was a supply ship. After that, he was assigned to the USS Abbott, which was a destroyer. Then, he was transported to work in the Naval Hospital and worked on computers to set up a payroll system. He also typed up orders and transfers for the captain.
Underkoffler began his service in June. He served 2 years in the reserves and another 2 in active duty as a yeoman. Along with many other men, Mr. Underkoffler enlisted and joined the reserves first to avoid being drafted. Just like any other person, the men on the ship had to work, eat, sleep, and they enjoyed free time when it was available by reading, playing cards, or going off the ship to go get drinks with buddies.
Mr. Underkoffler's experience in the Navy was not action-filled, but it was still just as necessary. Due to his clubbed foot, he was unable to do some of the more active jobs, but he still had an important role as a yeoman. A majority of his job was typing up orders, transfers for sailors, and keeping track of medals and what people were doing. Mr. Underkoffler, as well as other yeomen on the ships, were given the job of keeping everything organized. The classes he had taken in high school prepared him well for his job.
With so many men on the ship, there were a couple of inconveniences. For example, on the ship, every person had their own bunk, but the bunks were very small and uncomfortable. They also worked 8-hour shifts, just like people would in an office, and sometimes it got boring. Other times, there were big waves.
And you're looking out, and the waves are higher than the ship, and you're looking up there. What would happen if that would fall right down on the ship? It was amazing. It was something to see.
Were there any bad storms while you were on the ship?
Yeah, as I was saying about, we had some really high waves on the destroyer. The destroyer isn't a real big ship, and when it gets out in the ocean and the waves get high,
If those waves would have come down on top of the ship. At certain points there was tension, but overall everyone got along and fights were settled fairly quickly. The sailors ate everything from beans to steak and drank iced tea, beer, and soda. It was all served by a mess hall on the ship. They ate, worked, and slept in different shifts in order to keep everything organized.
Throughout the 4 years that Mr. Underkoffler served, he wrote his wife constantly. As one of the only ways to communicate with family and friends outside of the Navy, many people took to writing letters to keep in touch with loved ones. Mr. Underkoffler got an honorable discharge due to his clubbed foot, but would have liked to fight to stay harder. After Underkoffler got home, he was not treated very differently, but it did take him a little while to get back into his normal routine and find a job. From the Navy, Mr. Underkoffler learned discipline and how to do things the Navy way. He used the discipline he got from his service to raise his 2 children, Greg and Lisa Jo Underkoffler. He belongs to and is very active in the American Legion. Underkoffler likes that the Legion does a lot of good in the area. Since he has been out of the Navy, he has enjoyed his work and traveling. The Navy, to him, was something that a lot of people could do to help them find what they truly want to do with their lives, and he would do it all over again if he had the chance. Thank you for your service.